it's easy to drown in a sea of metrics. So, how many are you going to give us, Ben, that we actually have to look at and care about?
We're looking at three today.
Three. Okay, I think that's going to be manageable. So, everyone take a deep breath and let it out. Your math
Yeah,
teacher is not here. There's no judgment. There's no anxiety. We're going to get three numbers that are going to help our businesses make more money. I think that's something we can all handle.
numbers don't lie. You love numbers, right, John?
Oh, absolutely. I look at a lot of numbers, though. I think the challenge with numbers is that there's a lot of them, right? There might be even, you would say, infinity numbers, but a lot of them don't matter for what we're doing here. So I think this is going to be a great $5 word, disambiguation, right? We're going to bring some clarity to what to actually look at because the ads platforms have a lot of numbers. The e-commerce platforms have a lot of numbers. It's easy to drown in a sea of metrics. So how many are you going to give us, Ben, that we actually have to look at and care about?
We're looking at three today.
Three. Okay, I think that's going to be manageable. So everyone take a deep breath and let it out. Your math
Yeah,
teacher is not here. There's no judgment. There's no anxiety. We are going to get three numbers that are going to help our businesses make more money. I think that's something we can all handle. So, Ben, what do you got for us?
absolutely. So the first number that we're going to talk about, the metric that impacts, these are the metrics that create the most impact of creative. And the first is the click-through rate. So you guys know the click-through rate is we're looking at the unique length click-through rate. So when somebody sees your Facebook ad, this is the number of impressions or actually the number of people who click through divided by the number of impressions. So basically who sees your ad and who clicks through to the landing page, to the sales page, whatever that destination is that you want them to get to. And so what is it telling us is, are people interested enough to click? It's pretty simple, but it's something that if you're thinking about it in the story of how your ad performs, right? When we're thinking about ads and especially creative, um, it's telling a story, right? The creative itself is telling a story, and we're going to look at the numbers as a way to tell the story of how they're performing. So, especially if you're looking at an image ad, this is kind of the first page. So, you open it and you see, okay, are people being interested enough to even get to the place at which they're taking an action? Because this is the first step. If they're not taking this first step, they won't convert, right? If they're converting here, then we can move on down the funnel, right? If you open a book or if you start a movie, I'm not the biggest reader. I think a lot of us relate to maybe watching movies. If you turn a movie on Netflix, the first 10 minutes is bad. I'm going to turn it off, right? I'm not going to continue investing all of this time into getting down the rabbit hole of a story that I don't like. So if this metric is bad, then that kind of tells you that that first page isn't good, that we're not getting people to even go down the funnel towards a conversion, right? And so a strong hook is basically evidenced by your click-through rate. So if it's low, then somebody is saying, okay, you're putting something out there. I know, maybe I don't, maybe it's not so clear that you want me to take an action. I'm not so sure that that action is for me right now. So this is kind of step one. And John, you can talk about this too, but it's like this is one of those things that you don't have to run forever. You don't have to spend a ton of money on an ad to know whether or not this number is going to be good or bad. This kind of shows up pretty quickly, right? Like ROAS and things like that can come a little later and be a longer play to see if it's really working. This is something that's kind of an early indicator.
Yeah, exactly right. And one thing I will mention super quick, Ben, which I think is good context, especially for Meta, there's two numbers in the platform. There's click-through rate, and then
Right.
there's unique click-through rate.
Right.
Do I talk about metrics all day? Boy, I got a lot in my head. But we want to look specifically at the unique click-through rate because the click-through rate, I believe, averages kind of all sessions together where anyone has ever had a chance to see the ad. And so you
Right.
may see it and say, whoa, I got 6, 7, 8%. But really, we're trying to think in the moment that somebody's scrolling and an ad pops up, comes in front of their eyes, how likely are they to be so interested and curious with the ad and then the copy to nudge through and go ahead and take that action? And I believe this is for all ad types. Someone said this is for purchase goal, but your 1.6% or so, is that for basically every campaign that people are running, right? It's not that ads to a purchase versus ads to traffic versus ads to an opt-in are going to be different. That's the average for uh, Meta in general.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point too, because if we're talking click-through rate in general, that would be a lot higher. And correct me if I'm wrong, this isn't a custom metric. This is something that already lives in Facebook. You can go through and say unique click-through rate once you put it into the ads manager.
It's a default metric. I mean, they got a
Yeah.
lot of these, but yeah, and this is a tricky one because there's so many variants. But yeah, you're going to want unique link click-through rate
Yes.
because
Right.
click-through rate also can mean in the context of the ad platform, you click on the name of the brand in the ad, you don't even go to the landing page. So unique
Right.
link click-through rate, that's what we're looking for. And our internal benchmark has historically been 1.5 is kind of like, okay, good enough. And so it's nice to see that the average for the industry stacks up just a tiny bit before that. Obviously, greater number, better sign because you're getting more people to the next step. But that's only part of the puzzle here. So what's next, Ben?
Yeah, what's next? So that's the first page. So if people are getting to, people can't convert, right? The next metric we're going to talk about is conversion rate. If people aren't clicking through, they obviously can't convert. So what this tells you is your ad basically priming them to close the deal, right? We're not going to talk about landing pages today because this is a creative focused discussion, but there's something we like to call ad scent, right? When you put an ad forward, that's the first thing that somebody sees when they're scrolling through their Facebook. That is the first impression that they've given to this offer. So they have a state of mind, they have a context, they've been told a story about what the offer is. And if they're going to the landing page or to the sales page or whatever that destination is, and they're not closing the deal, we have a problem there. A lot of times that's an ad scent problem. The ad smells like this. Okay, I like it. I've decided to click through and take the time to get off Facebook and to go somewhere else. And now this smells differently. Maybe it's not, maybe it's because the copy doesn't connect, or maybe it's because it's incredibly salesy. The ad was all emotional. Maybe it's because the ad was all emotional and the page is all salesy. So it really has to do. That's why we look at click through rate first, right? Because that's the first part of the story. And then once they're here, does your ad connect well enough with the information on your sales page to get a conversion, right? And it's about tying creative to revenue, right? We can have amazing click-through rates that are on the hookiest, the most scroll stopping, jarring, shocking ads ever that are through the roof. And if we're getting a ton of clicks, but no conversions, we have a problem there, right? Because we're all ultimately interested in what's the impact of our business that this creative has, not necessarily what's the impressions. How does Facebook like the ad creative that we're putting out there. And you can see low click-through rates and really, really high conversion rates too. Sometimes that can work. So we have to look at these two numbers together as part of the same story. Are enough people getting there? And then are enough people closing? Because it's not just about your landing page. It's about how they've been primed to go from the ad to the landing page. John, do you agree with that synopsis? I know you do a lot of stuff with conversion rate optimization.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's easy to optimize a page to death, right? It's something that I frankly love to do. So
Mhm.
sorry to all the pages I've killed, but you have to have people set up correctly. And I would say these are almost like inversely correlated sometimes. If you have a super
Yeah.
insanely
Yeah.
high click-through rate, it's going to typically be a lower conversion rate because it's a little bit more of that, like what is it, tabula or, like you see those. Look at these
Yeah.
shocking celebrities now. Those things get insane
Sure.
clicks, and the products that they're selling have nothing to do with it. So conversion's low. So it's not always about how do I get a 10% click through rate because your conversion rate's going to dip. It's nice to look at both of these because it helps you know how well are we getting people excited and curious, and then how well does that map back to our actual desired end thing. So I think it's good to always have two numbers you're looking at in your head in general. But how does our third one
Yeah.
fit into the picture here?
So we're going to play a little game to
Mhm.
guess the third metric, right? So the first answer in the chat wins. Again, think we're talking creatively. So I'm going to need your help, John, here. I know you don't know the answer, or can you guess? I'm going to give you a hint. So the first hint is video only metric. Um, See if or John, or what are we getting through here in the chat? Arian, I know you can see the chat and know the answer.
So I've heard ROAS, Seymour rate, 75% watch time, hook rate,
None so far. Well,
through
maybe.
play,
Okay, well, let's
view
give
through
another
rate.
clue. It doesn't care about conversions or clicks. It only cares about attention.
Views, hold rate. I think we're getting
We're getting
closer.
close. That's we're dancing around it, and I want to hear we love naming things at Smart Marketer,
Yes,
right?
we
Like
do.
we have to have a good name. So this is a ratio of people who pause mid scroll just to give your video a shot.
Yep. Engagement, watch time, retention rate. All
Yeah,
right.
okay.
Yes. And I think, yeah, it's good for people to know it's a custom made
It
smart
is a
marketer metric
custom.
that everybody can build in their own ad account. And you'll find it by dividing your 3 second view totals by total impressions. Nice. All right. Here we got it. Mikel Perez, thumb
Oh,
stop
let's
ratio.
go.
Very,
Awesome.
very nice, Mikel.
I'm sure a lot of you are frustrated in the chat. You're like, that's what I was saying. But like I said, it's smart marketer. We like to name things, so we gotta have a name for it, a sticky name. We gotta get the hook, right? So, are you tracking your thumb stop ratio? I see the poll going up here. Wow. This is surprising. We're getting a lot of no's. It looks like about 1 out of every 4 people is tracking their thumb stock ratio. Wow, and it's going down. Okay, this is good. This is good. Well, I was hoping that everyone wasn't going to hop in and just say, obviously, Ben, move on to the next thing. This is good. I'm glad we get to work on this together. So, yeah, about 1 out of every 5 person is tracking their thumb stop ratio. So, as I was going through, we're talking about the story that the numbers tell, right? We want to basically get a picture of the customer journey by seeing the numbers and seeing what story they tell. The thumb stop ratio, and again, guys, this is just for video because we can't see how long somebody looks at an image, but this is the percentage of people who watch 3 seconds of your video. And we're going to show you how to set up um, that custom metric for yourself. So it measures the attention, basically the attention grabbiness of your ad. So when somebody's scrolling through Facebook, we think they're looking for ads, but they're just not, right? They're looking for fun videos from their friends and from family, or engagement bait that is terrorizing our world right now. And we need to see how many people are stopping and looking at and actually taking in our videos, and that's for the first impression only, right? So now we're going to show you how to set up the thumb stop ratio. So we'll talk about why it matters first. We kind of dived into a little bit of that. But why it matters is if they're not stopping, they're not converting, right? This is the first piece of that story. It's before the click-through rate. I mean, if they're not stopping, they're not clicking through. This is the first, it's almost like the cover of the book, right? If we're talking about click-through rate being the first page and the conversion rate being the end, this is the cover of the book. And the cover of the book, people say don't judge it by it, but I'm a sucker for that, right, John? All right.
Exactly.
So another reason this is important is because the high ratio, this really helps for CPMs, right? Because Meta, Facebook wants content that engages people. It wants content that keeps them watching and that they enjoy consuming. That's why social proof is so important on ads for low CPMs and for a better return, right? So if Facebook is saying, okay, people are engaging with this, people actually like watching it, it's going to make that traffic cheaper. It's going to make you win better in the auction and faster insights. Like I was saying, this is something you get immediately, and it really doesn't change from like $1,000 to $10,000 worth of ad spend. It can change a little bit, but typically people respond kind of how they're going to respond. And you might see the other numbers change, but this is something that you can get super quickly to know kind of how your video is working on Facebook. Okay. So this is how to set it up. You're going to create a custom conversion and add this formula in. So you're doing this within Ads Manager. And the formula there is 3 second video plays divided by impressions. And so you also want to keep that as a percentage. So you see at the bottom, you have a drop down box there that says numeric, things like that. You want to have that be a percentage. And so we look at the benchmarks kind of like this. 30%, over 30% is fantastic. If you have an over 30%, you are doing something right. Run with it. Use that hook in other ads. Obviously, compare it with your click-through rate because again, like John was saying, If you're getting a ton of your thumb stop ratio is super high and your conversions are low, we have a problem there. The scent is off. People are not getting what they've been promised from the hook, or the hook doesn't relate to kind of the end of the ad. 20 to 30% though is kind of where we live, right? That's in the solid range. And then below 15%, it needs work. And that means reworking, the first 3 seconds of your video, right? That we have to jump into the content sooner. We have to put something forward that grabs their attention better. Test new hooks, find a way to interrupt the pattern, right? If you look at just all of the engagement bait videos on Facebook, the ones that are so big, they do this really, really well. And a lot of times they use not the best tactics like fear or shock to do this. But we can take a lesson from that and kind of how they stop the scroll. And like I said, we can use it to predict what creatives are going to work faster based on, that quick kind of feedback. So